We are ready to begin, so again, please make your way to your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, we now have the pleasure to have our first panel discussion. Before this begins, please note again of your headsets at your seats. Channel 1 is English and Channel 2 is Japanese. Moderating this discussion will be Steve Csonka, Executive Director of the Commercial Aviation Alternative Fuels Initiative. As Executive Director of CAFE, Mr. Csonka works to further its mission of fostering industry partnership for the development and commercialization of sustainable aviation fuels. With over 34 years of industry experience, he continues to serve in leadership, steering committee, consultancy, and BOD roles with multiple aviation industry organizations in areas of applying technology and business concepts to enable commercial progression with SAF. I will now turn the time over to him to introduce each panelist and begin this section of the program.
Thank you, Emiko. We good? Yep, okay. So, yep, I'm Steve, and 4 years of my life are missing from that description. So 38 years in the industry now with OEMs, airlines, and the last 13 years with CAFE. And CAFE is a public-private partnership focused solely on the development of SAF as the primary means for decarbonizing aviation. And we've got a real simple remit, which is to simply foster the development and commercialization of SAF, and I have the great luxury of being able to work with some great teammates like you see on the stage today in order to make that happen. So with me today, we have Ms. Cherie Wilson, Vice President of Government Affairs.
No one sees the world quite like an airline.
And that's true. Thank you. Was that from above or? Government Affairs and Sustainability at Delta Airlines, Mr. Tom Michels, Director of Government Affairs at United Airlines, Mr. Tadashi Matsushita, Executive Vice President of ANA Group Corporate Strategy, Airline Management, and Okinawa region of ANA Holdings, and Mr. Makoto Maezawa, how was that? Decent? Senior Vice President of the Americas at Japan Airlines. So we have two sessions today that are going to explore different facets of the work that's being done by the industry. This specific session is focused on airline approaches, airline views, airline activities. And what they're going to discuss in order with some brief presentations followed by Q&A is what roles and responsibilities should airlines have to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050? How should airlines collaborate with stakeholders to achieve carbon neutrality? Beyond alliances, how should airlines cooperate with rivals or be in co-opetition with everybody in the industry? How should airlines think about absorbing the price of SAF, which may remain high, versus the price of petroleum jet for some period of time? And they're going to discuss what their expectations are and the challenges they perceive for SAF procurement and production expansion. So just a general view of multiple aspects from the airline industry. And with that, I'll go ahead and kick off with Cherie.
Thank you, first of all, on behalf of Delta Airlines, GD, for including us in this symposium. Sustainably connecting the U.S. and Japan has been and remains a priority for Delta. We provide the most service of any other U.S. carrier from the U.S. to Haneda to 6 destinations: Atlanta, Detroit, Minneapolis, Seattle, Los Angeles, and Honolulu. So we very much appreciate being a part of this important dialogue. Today, I'd just like to share a few slides with you regarding our journey to net zero, and as part of the larger aviation industry's commitment to address climate change. So as I go through the deck, I hope you'll see these reoccurring top-line messages incorporated throughout the presentation. We genuinely wish to reinforce our commitment to work collaboratively with public and private sector partners in the U.S. and abroad to advance policies and coalitions that will scale the global SAF marketplace. And with that, one of the ways in which we are educating the public is through ensuring that there's transparency in our path to net zero. And I apologize, I can't seem to go back. There we go. So what we'd like to do is play a brief video for you that just demonstrates the ways in which we are publicly trying to relay our journey to net zero. Let's see if this works. No. Sorry. If you could play the video on the back, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So I hope that the video provided a level set on how we fit into the global decarbonization and sustainability journey. We find the objective of bringing our customers, our passengers, and our workforce along. And messages like this make it transparent and relatable. So as we think about the aviation sector's contribution to global greenhouse gas emissions, we've heard a lot of the estimates. There's an expectation, of course, that our share will grow as the auto industry increasingly electrifies and travel demand, of course, rebounds from pre-pandemic levels, or to pre-pandemic levels. We are a hard to decarbonize sector, and we have few alternatives to conventional jet fuel. 89% of our carbon footprint comes from the use of conventional jet fuel, and so therefore that is the core crux of our strategy. This slide represents the range of measures available to us as we think about the opportunities for intermediate and midterm impact, and in particular in relation to the role of ICAO as we think about the role of CORSIA, which we heard about earlier, as well as the long-term global aspiration for net zero. I don't think this thing likes me. It's okay, no worries. Now, as we think about our flight to net zero, one of the elements that I want to highlight is that we've developed essentially two core pillars to demonstrate our commitment to addressing net zero. One, eliminating our climate impact from flying. This is where we believe that we'll have the most ability to affect change, which is changing how we fly, what we fly, and advancing the use of alternative fuels. And then we're also looking at embedding sustainability in everything that we do. And so in this capacity, this is where we're thinking about how are we transforming the travel experience. So whether that's eliminating single-use plastics, redirecting waste away from traditional landfill, or electrifying our ground support equipment. This is a way in which we are really seeking to engage our customers and improve the overall experience. But notably, what we've done along the journey is that we've developed interim goals that we think will be critical to getting there. And so in particular, when we think about our flight to net zero and SAF representing our most important lever, we've outlined a path forward that ultimately will enable us to transition away from conventional jet fuel and towards the use of sustainable aviation fuel. So in this particular regard, one of the ways in which we're doing this is by developing various coalitions, committing to the use of long-term offtake agreements. So we have offtake agreements in place with traditional energy companies as well as new entrants. And we've also partnered with corporate and cargo customers to help reduce the overall cost of SAF by co-investing in SAF. The challenge here is that there's, quite frankly, as we've heard, very little available supply, and the costs are unfortunately disproportionately high relative to conventional jet fuel. And so as a result, we are very much dependent on robust partnerships and support by the US government. I want to applaud the US government for their leadership in advancing the SAF Grand Challenge, which you all heard about today. And in particular, this whole of government approach, quite frankly, gives the public sector and the business sector the ability to collaborate towards target setting and implementing policies that will enable us to affordably purchase and scale SAF. And so with that, I just wanted to flag the approach that the U.S. has taken with the Federal Reduction Act, and in particular, the establishment of the Blender's Tax Credit and the Clean Fuels Production Credit. From our government affairs vantage point, it has been critically important for us to advocate in support of policies and partnership with our supply chain partners. And so we were pleased to see an important first step advanced by the U.S. government in the form of these incentives, as well as a robust grant program, which you heard about, that is currently being executed at the Department of Transportation. And of course, there are funds and resources that have been made available through the Department of Energy that will help alleviate the cost burden as we look to scale this industry. Additionally, we are seeing investment from states. In particular, they are building off the momentum of the Inflation Reduction Act. And here in the U.S., I want to thank my colleague, Tom from United, for his work in Illinois. And our hub states, as you'll see here, Minnesota, Michigan, and Washington, are three other states that have advanced or are in the process of advancing legislation, either tax credits or low carbon fuel standards, that will truly be integral to adding additional incentive support that can be layered on top of the Inflation Reduction Act. And that's critically important because we are trying to address price parity here in the U.S. between the traditional on-road fuels market and frankly, this nascent sustainable aviation fuel market that represents less than 1% of what we have available. So we need to see robust momentum from states. And this is just a brief example of how we are catalyzing partnerships. We launched a first of its kind initiative in Minnesota, which is our second largest hub recently, whereby we are setting individual goals for uptake based on the fact that we have significant demand at MSP, and in particular, the policies that I just went through. You see Minnesota as one of the first movers in advancing policies that would support the scale up of SAF. It also represents an important state in terms of having immediate access to agricultural feedstocks. And we believe that if you can catalyze and invest in SAF with the value chain, you are essentially creating an opportunity to bring that scale, the cost curve, down. So ultimately, I want to leave you all with the message that we have an industry-wide commitment to SAF. We believe that you must have performance-based as well as feedstock and technology-neutral incentives that will help drive investment from the private sector into SAF. And these need to be in place for the duration of the capital investment that's necessary to see these facilities get off the ground. And state-level incentives that complement the federal incentives do also need to be adopted to ensure robust diversification across the country. And our last message is that mandates without incentives certainly can leave some challenges, will require certain challenges in terms of not guaranteeing sufficient supply for affordable, cost-competitive SAF, which is particularly of importance to us. And we hope that the approach that the United States has taken can serve as a model for other countries to follow. So, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Cherie. And we'll just move right along to Tom.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Cherie. Great presentation. Let's see if I can make this work any better than you can. Good. While we wait for that, my name is Tom Michels, and I'm the Government Affairs Director with United Airlines, where I manage all policy and advocacy related to our sustainability initiatives. And to start off today, I would like to deliver three basic top-line messages. First, the decarbonization of the aviation sector is a critical element of our collective emission reduction goals and a top priority for United and for the commercial aviation sector as a whole. Second, the most pressing obstacle to aviation decarbonization is the scaling and commercialization of low-carbon, sustainable aviation fuels, or SAF. We have to press ahead on other decarbonization initiatives that range from operational efficiencies to innovative aircraft engines and designs to capture our carbon emissions directly from the air, but fuel is a critical component here. Third and finally, United and the other commercial airlines around the globe are working together with our fuel suppliers, our aircraft manufacturers, with emerging technology companies, and with policymakers to ensure that affordable, sustainable, low-carbon aviation becomes the new standard in flight in the years to come. And before I commence my official presentation, I'd also like to acknowledge my colleagues here from ANA, Japan Airlines, and Delta for their collective efforts. ANA's SAF Flight Initiative, JL's critical investments in companies like Fulcrum Bioenergy, and Delta's active advocacy for SAF supportive policies, and such as their Minnesota hub, are all critical efforts toward our shared decarbonization objectives. And we look forward to continuing that successful collaboration, and of course with the policymakers that are here in this room, Annie Petsonk, foremost among them, a true leader in this space. So it's a real honor to be here as part of this symposium, because I think it does show our shared commitment. Let's see. I think I've somehow gone too far. There we are. So, for air travel, to redefine air travel with environmental responsibility and sustainability at the forefront, we have to start by acknowledging the challenge we face, and that's that aviation currently contributes around 3% of our global greenhouse gas emissions, and without action, that is expected to rise significantly as other industries decarbonize. At the end of 2020, we pledged a net zero goal of becoming 100% green by eliminating our greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, without relying on the use of traditional carbon offsets. We believe that while this is a very hard thing to do, it's also the right thing to do. It affords us the opportunity to focus on taking tangible steps to mitigate climate change impacts from our operations and create the future that we expect to deserve. United's decarbonization strategy has basically 4 pillars. We have to reduce our fossil fuel consumption by improving our operational efficiency and by replacing our fossil-based fuels with sustainable aviation fuels. We have to innovate by investing directly into early-stage technologies that hold the potential to radically transform aviation. And we have to remove our carbon footprint where possible through technologies like direct air capture. And finally, what has brought us all here today, we have to collaborate. We're collaborating with policymakers, with our fellow airlines and our corporate customers. For example, the SAF Tax Credit Coalition, led by key SAF producers in United and other airlines, successfully advocated for the enactment of the first ever tax credit explicitly for sustainable aviation fuel. Another key collaborative initiative that we launched to finance our transition to SAF is the Eco Skies Alliance. At its core, the Eco Skies Alliance is a collaborative financing mechanism for clean fuels. We established a cross-sector coalition comprised of our global corporate customers who are financing the green premium associated with the low-carbon sustainable aviation fuel used on their flights in exchange for the rights to the environmental attributes of that low-carbon fuel. Today, roughly 50 companies are involved in the Eco Skies Alliance, and they range from Microsoft to Siemens and from Accenture to Nike. Oops. So it really is all about the fuel, unfortunately. The combustion of jet fuel in our aircraft accounts for roughly 98% of United's greenhouse gas emissions. We're not particularly different than most airlines in that respect. United is a very large company. We have almost 100,000 employees. We have facilities all over the world, and we operate a significant ground fleet. And yet, of our total corporate emissions, 98% is the combustion of jet fuel. To address our emissions from jet fuel usage, we're taking steps to use less fuel by steadily enhancing the efficiency of our operations. We're securing newer and more efficient aircraft. We're advancing the deployment of advanced aerospace technologies that are forecasted to the market between now and 2050. So think different engines, lighter materials, direct air capture, batteries, and more. And of course, we are reducing the carbon intensity of the fuel we use by replacing conventional jet fuel with sustainable aviation fuel. United has a long history of leading on sustainability. In 2009, we flew the first demonstration flight using SAF by a U.S. airline. In 2016, United became the first airline globally to use SAF in regular operations. And we're the first airline to have launched a flight using 100% sustainable aviation fuel. But while efforts like the Eco Skies Alliance help us finance our SAF offtake, we needed to go a little bit further to support startups that are focused on the reduction of carbon emissions in aviation through sustainable aviation fuel research, technology deployment, and production. And to that end, United launched its Sustainable Flight Fund in February this year with more than $100 million of capital from United and its inaugural corporate partners like JP Morgan Chase, GE, Honeywell, and others. By July, just 5 months after its launch, United announced that our Sustainable Flight Fund had increased its investment power to nearly $200 million and added 8 new corporate partners 5 months after its initial launch. And this slide shows you some of the portfolio companies that we are investing in through the Sustainable Flight Fund and our United Airlines Ventures Fund. So companies like Alder and Fulcrum and Blue Blade Energy, which is actually a JV that we're involved with, are in the sustainable aviation fuel space. But there are other companies such as Archer and Hart Aerospace and ZeroAvia that are experimenting with different kinds of drivetrains. So whether it's an electric aircraft or a hydrogen-powered aircraft. And then we're going deeper into the supply chain with Natron Energy. That's a revolutionary battery company that we're investing in. And then we're looking around the corner at third-generation SAF opportunities that would use captured gases, power-to-liquids opportunities such as dimensional energy and others that you see here. So, with that, I think I've mostly covered everything. If I could leave a message today with you, it's that collaboration across industry and across governments is critical to meeting our decarbonization goals. Here in Washington, my personal focus is on public policy that provides incentives that will help scale and commercialize low-carbon solutions. In the U.S., in just the past year, we've seen a variety of key policy changes, most of which Cherie highlighted. In other countries, we're seeing great initiatives like the Green Lane Initiative highlighted by JCAB. I think the hybrid approach, using mandatory approaches as well as incentives that Japan is outlining, is a great model, quite frankly. I think we're going to need a little bit of both. We do support incentives, but we are also certainly open to well-crafted mandates in the future as production begins to ramp up. At the end of the day, we're trying to build a new clean fuel industry, and that will take significant private capital as well as public sector investments like these. We look forward to continuing our strong collaboration with allied groups toward this common objective. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much.
Right to Tadashi.
Yep. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me in this panel and giving opportunity for ANA to share some of the things we've been doing and address the things we're thinking about this important topics. Okay, so ANA has made a climate commitment a central aspect of our business philosophy. And we have set a midterm goal of reducing CO2 emissions by 10% compared to 2019 by 2030. And by 2030, we will be replacing 10% of our jet fuel with sustainable aviation fuel. We are moving towards our ambitious goals through 4 key approaches, as shown on the slide. Fleet modernization and operational improvements, use of sustainable aviation fuel, utilization of carbon offsetting mechanism, and investment in carbon removal technologies. So working together with our partners in the United States, we have already begun building some successes as a pioneer in decarbonizing the aviation industry. At ANA, the introduction of fuel-efficient aircraft has been significant and long-term strategic consideration. We were fortunate enough to have a wonderful strategic partner with Boeing. As a first airline to introduce Boeing 787. From a fuel perspective, in 2019, ANA announced its strategic partnership with LanzaJet. As we know, LanzaJet is at the vanguard of next generation SAF production using ethanol-based feedstock. So LanzaJet has provided ANA with invaluable expertise especially during the early stages of navigating emerging SAF market. SAF is absolutely the key to decarbonize the aviation industry. However, SAF itself is not enough to achieve our net zero goal. We need to have other solution, and that's why we, as an airline, I think we are the first one to have a strategic partnership with company 1.5. We've signed the purchasing contract with them, and 1.5 is now constructing the direct air capture plant in Texas, and which is expected to be commercially operational by mid-2025. And upon completion, we will be purchasing 10,000 metric tons of CDR credits per year for 3 years starting from 2025. So ANA is well established as a leading voice for SAF adoption in Japan. So this left image is of the first scheduled flight powered by SAF to depart from our major hub airport, Haneda. So thanks to this successful introduction of SAF at our major hub airport, we were able to launch the program called SAF Flight Initiative, responding to the corporate demand for decarbonized logistics and travel. So the SAF Flight Initiative is essentially the mechanism to distribute the portion of cost of SAF across the value chain. It was the first program of its kind in Asia. We learned from our partner, United Airlines. Currently, 14 Japanese companies signed up for this program. In order to create momentum for decarbonization in the aviation industry and send a strong signal for SAF demand, in addition to what ANA has been doing, we've been collaborating with other airlines, even those regarded traditionally as our rivals. So sustainability efforts has significantly changed the dynamics of how we work together. So in October 2021, ANA and Japan Airlines issued a joint report with the aim of increasing awareness and promoting understanding of sustainable aviation fuel. And the right-hand side, 16 corporations in March 2022. This includes not only airline and SAF manufacturer, but also feedstock suppliers, the financial institutions, and so forth, got together and jointly launched the voluntary organization called Act for Sky. And this Act for Sky works on commercialization and expansion, promotion of domestically produced SAF. So now there are 30 companies which has signed up for this organization. So this cross-industry collaboration has been and will continue to be instrumental in promoting sustainability in the aviation industry. The feedstock availability. This is one area that poses significant challenge to ensuring stable production increases in SAF. ANA is proactively engaging collaboration with the government on SAF manufacturing project, including establishing so-called e-fuel manufacturing technologies. As just one example, in August 2021, consortium of 5 corporations, including ANA, made a proposal of investigating the development of man-made photosynthesis technology, and this proposal was adopted as a commissioned project by the Ministry of Environment in Japan. So, to wrap up, the key takeaways. Commitment to playing a leading role in raising awareness for aviation decarbonization. Although airlines cannot make SAF themselves, they can and they must be a leader in partnering with producers and demonstrating the benefit it brings to the society and their commitment to the sustainable future. And cooperation instead of competition to elevate an industry to the next level of societal good. Cooperation is often more important than competition. So this collaborative effort between ANA and Japan Airlines sent a powerful message about industry's commitment to sustainable aviation in Japan. Sustainability in aviation is a collective issue for stakeholders. Airlines will play a leading role, but it is important for all parties involved, including fuel suppliers, airports, governments, customers as well, to recognize and address the challenges related to sustainability. Only through collective understanding actions we can achieve a truly sustainable industry. And last but not least, comprehensive government support. While we aim to fulfill our commitments towards decarbonization, we're concerned about the myriad policies and priorities among different nations and regions. It is our expectation that governments will reach consensus in critical areas and collaborate to promote comprehensive support for decarbonization, ensuring a level playing field for all airlines. Thank you.
Thank you, Tadashi. And over to you, Makoto.
Yes, thank you. My name is Makoto Maezawa. I'm a Senior Vice President in America, the Japan Airlines. I'm very happy to join this event, but honestly, I'm a little bit nervous because of this is the first time to have this kind of panel, but do my best. Okay, first, let me explain JAL's GX strategy to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. As many of you are aware, last October, the target values set by ICAO for the CO2 reduction promotion system, CORSIA, were revised. With a change in the baseline, it is necessary to further deepen the product reduction target. In addition, government initiatives are also accelerating. We will make effort to renew fuel-efficient aircraft, devise new operations, utilize and promote domestic production of SAFs, and also utilize offset through emission trading. Okay, next slide. This page provides a timeline of domestic and international decarbonization-related initiatives and procurement contract from 2018 to 2022. The JAL Group has set a goal of replacing 1% of all fuel on board with SAF in fiscal year 2025 and 10% in fiscal year 2030. In order to achieve our goal, we have been procuring SAF both domestically and internationally. And in Japan, we are collaborating with stakeholders across various industries to manufacture and commercialize domestically produced SAF. Overseas, we have been proceeding with SAF procurement strategically, focusing on leading companies on the west coast of the United States and Neste in Europe, as well as collaborating with Japanese trading companies. In June of this year, we expect to achieve the 1% target for 2025 through the contract with Shell. Today, I would like to explain about the joint procurement by One World and building momentum in Japan, framed in red on that slide. This page explains joint procurement. We are currently working with One World Alliance members to procure SAF in the US, which is our leaders in SAF production. We have signed contract with Ametis, which used waste cooking oil and animal fat as raw materials, and the Jibo, which used non-food corn as a raw material to procure sustainable aviation fuel from each. Japan Airlines will start fueling with SAF in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego from 2024 to 2026. This is the first joint procurement in our alliance, and by demonstrating the necessity of SAF to multiple airlines, we will contribute to the spread and market expansion of SAF and promote carbon neutrality in aviation. So next slide, I will skip the detailed explanation here as it overlapped with Matsushita-san's presentation. Thank you very much. In order to secure a stable supply of SAF in Japan, we are conducting survey and awareness activities in cooperation with ANA and JAL, as well as with many other industries. The Japan Airlines launched the Sustainable Challenge Flight for a week last month on scheduled flight from Haneda to New York under the slogan, "A Sustainable Future Together." The significance of the September timing of conducting this event was to provide a sustainable transportation option for these who are traveling on New York route during the UN SDG Summit. We also want to use this opportunity to raise awareness of achieving the SDGs in the airline industry. This flight used SAF for approximately 11% of all onboard fuel. We took measures to reduce CO2 emission by selecting the optimum operating altitude and using the electronic towing tractor. Also, carbon credits were also used to offset CO2 emissions. Finally, I would like to explain transition bond. By using the first SDGs bond, we wanted to clearly demonstrate our determination to tackle the best source of CO2 emission in the aviation industry, which is emissions from aircraft, and work toward reducing them. Increasing SAF production, which I have already explained, will take some time, and technology to use non-fossil fuel, such as electricity and hydrogen to power airplanes, is still under development. During the transition period, until these new technology become available, early aircraft renewal of fuel-efficient aircraft should be considered a top priority. Therefore, Japan Airlines has chosen to use the proceeds of SDGs bond issue for fuel-efficient aircraft renewal. Aircraft renewal will improve fuel consumption per aircraft by approximately 20%. By fiscal year 2025, 47% of our fleet will comprise of our new aircraft. Okay, thank you very much. This is the end of the presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we clearly have some common themes, and I've been asked to wrap those up at the end of this session. But I'll ask a couple of questions to dig in a little bit more on a few areas. So I think, in addition to the four of you, right, you got a lot of airlines around the world who are really digging in here. And I think the lack of demand is not an issue at present, right? It's lack of production capacity, and that's impeded by several things. Can any of you point to some specifics for maybe other things that the airlines can do to work together? Is it something we do through IATA? Is it something that happens that's fostered through ICAO efforts? But just general thoughts, and it could be market-based mechanisms too, where IATA could come in. But any thoughts on things that would change the game with respect to further collaboration within the airlines? Anybody?
Well, I'll jump in. I think the airlines are collaborating. I think what we've seen through ICAO, I was at the pre-CAF conference recently, and the level of engagement from the various trade associations and from the government stakeholders was evident that the airlines are leveraging strategic opportunities to elevate their commitment to procure SAF. I think where there are additional opportunities is, quite frankly, in ensuring that we are educating others about the need for robust policy investment that will ultimately enable increased production of SAF that can bring down the cost curve of SAF. And in order to do that, it's going to require airlines collaborating with a broad cross-section of players. We think it is critically important to look at the entire value chain. So from the feedstock, the producers, the farmers, all the way to the end users and the key players along that full value chain. So making sure that you have all of the players at the table, ultimately engaging constructively around a solution is critically important.
Okay. And I'll come back to that to expound on that a little bit, but Tom or anybody else?
So certainly, collaboration on advocacy is critical. We had a great success over the past 3 years with this very broad coalition that all of us were involved in. Our friends in the fuel production community, LanzaJet was a great leader in that. So I think on policy design, policy and advocacy, that's certainly something that we work in every day, and it's a great spot for collaboration. I think there's a lot of room for innovation when it comes to real financing opportunities. Airlines compete bitterly, right? We compete aggressively for markets and costs and things like that. But we don't compete on safety, we don't compete on sustainability. And so I think there are real opportunities, we in concentrated geographic areas where you have an airport, where all the airlines come in and they rely on a variety of fuel producers. I think there's great opportunity to explore innovative financing mechanisms where the airport lessees that operate there could collaborate on supporting lower carbon fuel alternatives. There's also the infrastructure that needs to go in to make that all possible. So we've only just started to scratch the opportunity there, and certainly bilaterally there's great opportunity on R&D and on deploying new policy solutions that may look different from one country to the next, and I think we all have a lot to learn from each other on how we can innovate there.
Yes, I've touched upon the voluntary organization, Act for Sky. That's private sector, got together and working together for the commercialization and promotion and expansion of SAF. And Onuma-san mentioned the council we have established in Japan. It's the government-led, but private sector is committed to that council. So there's a collaboration between amongst public, private, and cross-industry. But I think we need to have it's only in Japan. So if we could expand that to overseas, then I think it will work better. And also, I think I've touched upon the comprehensive government support part, the myriad policies and priorities among different nations, different regions. And that's actually confusing and very difficult for us, for private sectors, to set the agenda in the first place. So if we could discuss that through ICAO, IATA, and come up with a consensus, I think our initiative will move forward.
Okay. Go to anything?
Okay, can I speak Japanese?
Sure.
Thank you for that question, and also I appreciate those comments from my colleagues here. I definitely echo what has been said here on the stage. Currently, we are working together with ANA so that we have a very good alignment together. And also, we have Act for Japan, and also One World Alliance is another initiative that we have been taking advantage of. Of course, we have more opportunities to come and then also more partners to work with. And one thing that I can touch on is that I think that rulemaking is something that we need to work together on. We do have a long future together in terms of this effort, so we need to visualize what kind of rules are most optimal for our efforts. And so that is how we can shape a good future for us all. And then also, of course, we have to have very good awareness in terms of sustainability. And also, airlines always face customers. So we need to think about customers' benefits and then also social benefits at large. And that's how we can work together, that this kind of ideas can be immersed in the society. Thank you.
So it's going to come back to a comment that Cherie made with respect to collaboration. There's all kinds of things that make that difficult, and one of those is the fact that we're producing SAF from a broad range of resources and from a broad range of technologies, and those resources certainly aren't uniform around the world. And so that makes it hard. We can continue to work on technology development to bring down the cost of those, but from a policy perspective, it is perhaps a little bit more difficult, or coming up with a uniform governmental approach for those things. But I think the things that you outlined, that all of you outlined with respect to that communication about the challenge, the interest in the airlines still wanting to buy these fuels with some level of policy support, et cetera, is key to overcoming that diversity that we see around the world. And in the U.S., a lot of things we see, we're blessed with feedstock availability, but we know in some other areas it's absolutely not the case. Any thoughts of anyone with respect to the diversity? Does that help us, hurt us? Anything else we can do about it? Tom?
Could I take first crack? I would say that the diversity of feedstocks and solutions and technologies is a feature. It's not a bug. It can be a challenge, but it shouldn't be a fundamental problem. I think what is a problem is if we see the current status of technology or the current status of given feedstocks carbon intensity, and we assume that that will continue on forever, when in fact this all evolves over time. And I think for that reason, it's critical that when we devise our policies, they are performance-based, right? We establish a goal that we want to achieve, then let us figure out how we get there, right? And let us do what we need to do to meet the performance criteria set forth in a given rule. So I would say any feedstock, for example, should be eligible. Any technology should be eligible as long as it can meet certain performance-based criteria.
Perfect. Anybody else want to comment on that? The challenges of disparity in feedstock and supply?
Japan definitely has a challenge on this, feedstock matter. So, that's why we need collaboration, cross-border collaboration. That's one of the reasons we need cross-border collaboration. And also, just as Tom mentioned, technology might help. And the Japanese companies, including us actually, I touched upon the consortium of 5 companies. We're trying to have the next technology that would allow us to, minimize the disadvantage of having less feedstock. So for the time being, collaboration is absolutely necessary for Japan.
All right. There's been work going on for several years in reaching out to existing petroleum also. And we know that one of the potential advantages there is if we can use existing petroleum assets, it cuts down on the capital expense associated with building new facilities. Any of you have observations about collaborating with existing petroleum companies, and do you see them coming to the table the way you think that they need to?
Sure, I'll jump in. I think it's critically important that we engage with the existing petroleum companies. As you mentioned, they have the infrastructure, they have the capacity, so scale is frankly in their DNA. And quite frankly, they are all being pushed to develop their own climate and decarbonization goals. The trajectory on which they are doing that, of course, there's different goals for each of these companies. Some are more forward-leaning than others, but I think they are consistently feeling the pressure to engage and diversifying their portfolio of offerings to include sustainable aviation fuel, to include power to liquids or synthetic fuels, as well as renewables, hydrogen, things of that nature, carbon capture, direct air capture. These are all elements that we are seeing existing companies invest in. However, it's also critically important to have new entrants into the marketplace because we're fostering competition. There is significantly enough demand for all of these players to row in the same direction. So we welcome opportunities to work with those that are just getting started and those that are already well established.
Exactly. Heads nodding. Anything else?
Okay.
Go ahead.
いや、先ほどお話
So this is something to do with the previous comment. So we are doing Act for Sky in Japan. And since the launch of this Act for Sky, we have done so many activities, and also we still have so many steps to take in the future. So, for example, we need to think about feedstock and also technology, and so those are still our focuses to work on in the future. And so I think that we will be continuing on with this effort so that we can lead the world from the Japanese market. So thank you.
So I'm going to reserve 2 minutes.
では
Wrap. Real quick, one two-word answers. What do you think is the most difficult thing for Japanese and U.S. aviation industries as well as the global aviation industry to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050? And I'm assuming your answers are going to bolster what I'm going to say in terms of a wrap-up.
I would say cost competitiveness.
Cost.
You can't repeat, Tom. Come on.
All right, I'll go for technology viability. I think there are going to be a lot of challenges scaling this.
I would say cost as well, but supply of stuff, and which should be affordable for airlines, and ultimately it's going to be passed on to customers. So the supply with affordable price.
やはり価格
Yes, definitely cost. That is the most important thing. However, I can mention that domestic supply chain in Japan, so that's something that we need to work on. And then so that is going to be all Japan efforts and then also collaboration with the rest of the world. But of course, cost is definitely the biggest definite element.
1分7秒しか残ってないんですけれども、まとめてみます。
Because I'm living in this space. The airlines are committed. There's no question. They're trying to figure out exactly how they do that without and stay in business. They're committed to aviation sustainability. There are multiple pillars that they're using to pursue that aviation sustainability. They are all in on SAF. Everybody recognizes that SAF is going to play a major component of being able to achieve carbon neutrality in whatever form that it's pursued in. And we didn't talk about this. It was summarized in some of the slides, but the airlines are also all in on innovating with respect to different business models and working with partners in unique ways that they haven't necessarily done before. Another key message, this all requires a lot of collaboration. Bringing all the partners to the table to figure out how to overcome obstacles is key. Support from governments, passengers, customers is warranted and welcomed. Incentives and mandates have a place to play. There's a lot of uncertainty right now around those. Different folks are trying different things. We don't know if it's going to be consolidated in sufficient time. And it's highlighted by the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty. And uncertainty is the key death knell for being able to move forward aggressively with standing up in a completely new industrial sector. So we've got our work cut out for us as an aviation industry. We're all working it hard, and hopefully the future means good things for us. Thank you.